Black Ice Chronicles Massive. I'm standing here with Franklyn G. How you doing today, Franklyn?
Doing great, sir. Yourself?
Oh, great, great. I can't complain. You know, every week, unless we have special guests like uh, Dr. James Small or who else was here?
Yusuf Salam.
That's right, that's right. Every week, unless we have special guests, and he is so gracious to move his time to provide them with time to express to you on this conscious program. We have Franklyn G. Franklyn G, though modest, is our Las Vegas guru as far as knowledge of self is concerned, and especially concerning Egypt. Is that right?
I would a little less title, but I'm always a student, because you have to be mindful that as long as you're a student, you continue to learn. So that's the title I love to keep, student Furley.
Student per. Okay, okay. So we're here to make sure that we pass on information that will pass on to generations, to the next generation, to the next generation. So we'll make a better outcome for ourselves in this future that many of us will not see, but the future generations will look back and say there were people who cared enough to disseminate this information. Are you agreeable with that?
Totally agreeable.
Okay. So my first question is, you went to Egypt.
Yes, I did.
What made you decide that that was the journey that you wanted to take? And the second question is, what is the preparation necessary to take the trip to Africa to go to Egypt?
Well, I'll take the second part first. Africa is a continent, so the different countries you have to do different things. If you want to go to some countries, you will need shots and vaccinations. Be quite clear about that, and they are painful. For me, all shots are painful. But to go to Egypt, all you have to do is book your trip and find the right travel person to take you through to whatever it is you want to find out. Your first question was what inspired me. Uh, Kind of what it made me want to get involved with this. I was blessed, and what made me want to go to Egypt. I was blessed to take classes with Dr. Ben. And I should have gone to Egypt 35 years ago when Dr. Ben was alive. If you want to start this journey to understand some of the stuff that you're not being taught in terms of what Egypt is, in Egypt, the name is really called Kemet, and where it all really the information began. You can start by just reading some of his works and reading the works of guys like Sheikh Anta Diop. There are different books out there. And nowadays with Google, you can Google most of the information, and you can even find a lot of the older lectures from Dr. Ben on YouTube. And what made me want to go is through your whole life, you're not told certain facts that you'll see in books. You'll watch PBS or even catch a class in your own school, and you'll see something about Egypt, and then they'll show you the faces of these Egyptians now. For me, I wanted to see what it was when it was. And I just needed to go to the next level. And what actually happened is I had brought Professor Baba James Small out here, and as he was leaving, he says, you took my classes 20 years ago. You took Jeffrey's class 20 years ago. You took all of these classes. You read Ivan Van Sertima. You dialogue about it. What's the next level for you? How do you make it credible? You go see it for yourself. It's like when you first learn how to play basketball. For me, when I first started, when I could jump, I could slam. It was a thing. I knew more because I endeavored to give it more. So I hadn't given the full pursuit of the academics that go behind what makes us melanated, what makes us black. You see those pictures, they tell you black man was here first. You see those pictures of Africa where it's all jacked up and flies on our faces and stuff. But what was on the walls there, and what's in many of the cultures that are still in Africa, is the history of man. And if you wanted to know your purpose or that your originality in terms of being melanated, where it originated, it's in Africa. So having the opportunity to go with someone like Professor Ashra Kwesi, who is a disciple of Dr. Ben, who worked with him for 40 years, who's now doing the work that Dr. Ben did, who understands what Ivan Sertima was writing about, who understands what some of these people write, Dr. John Henry Clark, and even Baba Smalls. Once you get to see them, and you took that class from them, and then they recommend that you see what they were talking about 20 years ago that was on the walls, it's still there. Go see it, and it will definitely give you a suit of armor in terms of your mentality to let you know you're first. These people who look like me are on these walls. These people who have our shape, and in terms of the physicality of the Nubian black woman's body, it's on the wall. It's on the wall. It's not the pictures we see in Europe All of those images that you see were really characterized on some of the walls in Egypt. Even if you notice how George Washington stands with his left foot out, they stand with their left foot out because that's what the kings and queens of Egypt did. The kings and the warriors, because even in the military, I was in the Marine Corps. What did they say first? Left, right, left, right. So as you see those images purported to you, even as you see the Virgin Mary's holding of what is their version of Jesus, when you see that same picture on the wall in Egypt 4,000 years ago, before the Vatican, before Jesus, it lets you know you were here first. What you represent is the original man. And that should make you stronger in this oppressive land that we find ourselves, the competitive nature of being Nubian. You had to survive on those dark, hard desert days. It is hot over there, but it's not hard to go. What you would do is start investigating the things you want to see. And as I said, it's a lot easier now because of Google and those kind of things and the social networks. And there are other people who go there. But I would tell you, Professor Ashura Kwazimir present a beautiful experience and knowledge. 15 days, 14 lectures. That's a class. That is a semester at Egypt, if you will. Because if you took a class, you would meet once a week and you'd have a lecture, you'd have some dialogue and this and that, and you'd get a piece of paper. The same thing you're going to get here in terms of you'll be able to see the night before what you're going to see the day that you go out there and its representation against the wall of history. So that, again, sustains your mind. And if you're young and you have children, it's really worth it because the thing that I got when I was young, my parents being who they were, I got to read some books. I was forced to read some books, and the ones I was forced to read were the ones my parents gave me, and they were about people who look like me. Those kind of things that we just don't get in school, and that's what you have to do. This is not something the oppressor is going to provide you with. They're not going to provide you with anything that makes you non-docile or conformist. The books that my parents provided me wanted me to do allowed me to do the research in my own mind to sustain me as a black man.
So, what is the prep to go? Now, we talked about in certain countries
Mm-hmm.
within Africa, you have to get shots and they're painful. In Egypt, do you have to get vaccinations? And two, what is the prep? Do you have to fast before you go over? Do you have to like lose a certain amount of time to be able to take the plane ride? Things like that. And then we'll get into talking about the difference in food compared to the United States over in Egypt.
Mm-hmm. Well, the first thing is there's no prep. There's all you have to do is buy your ticket and find your tour guide. There's no needles. There's no health thing. You probably want to get cleared by, you definitely need a passport and things of that nature. So that's the preliminary stuff. Then, like I said, the preliminary is the desire. Uh, like I said, once you get all that stuff, there's no problems. Once you book your flight and get on it, finding the right tour people, not a problem. It's relatively safe over there, provided you with the right tour people. It's like anything else. If you go to New York or even you come out here, if you roll in that neighborhood, you could get jacked. But if you stay on the tour list, you're fine. The food, it's a little different because it's not American. Like an apple is smaller. It's not as big as our apple because they don't have the same chemicals and pesticides that we use to make those things big. There's no pig. It's a Muslim country. You'll get lamb. You can get beef. You can get chicken. All of those things though are different. They're not American food. A piece of chicken here. Chicken here in America is 59 days. It's 10 pounds. Chicken over there, it's not. It's just a different size because they don't use the same fortifying chemicals that we have used here. Water is the same everywhere. Soda is the same everywhere because it's manufactured product. If you do have some type of dietary, because you will, because the food is boiled in their water, the fruit is grown in their water, the animals are their animals, so you may have a small, as many on the tours do, dietary restraint in terms of you may get diarrhea. But bring those things with you that America has, the Imodium and things like that. But even as a Jamaican, what happens? We have busy tea, which is like a what is it? Cocoa leaf. It's coconut, nutmeg, some other stuff that they mix together. And my wife got it and got sick. Not sick, but she got the normal stomach ailment like day 4. My brother met, and the Rasta brother was right there. Boom, and maybe some busy tea. She was okay. Got better. Got better. It counteracted what was happening. So you don't have to do any of that other stuff. And while you're there, I mean, I forgot the last thing you say. When you're there, in terms of
Far as prep is concerned, and being there and being able to take the climate, do you have to fast a little bit before you go so you will lose some pounds because it is
no,
hotter?
yeah, you're gonna lose weight over there anyway. I lost weight because it's 100. We're in Vegas. Vegas is hot. Egypt is way hotter, way hotter. It is way hotter. I'm gonna tell you, and I guess there's nothing you can do about that. But no, you don't have to fast. You can fast while you're there because on the Professor Equazi's trip, there's always something. The cosmetic or the I don't want to say the cosmetic, but the persons who go on this trip are usually more culturally orientated. Now I know there are other trips, and I'm not putting that down. This brother, I forgot his name too, man. He's from New York. He does a good trip. I don't think Brother Polite goes, but there are other individuals on the net that you can find who do these trips. And like I said, there'll be people on the trip who are conscious and they have their own energies about them. So, like I said, how we the roster helped us out with the busy tea. There was a lady who was there from England who had some other thing for headache. It was a powder. She was British black, and then there was a brother there from Australia. Check out a Nigerian doctor who lives in Australia on this tour. And that's what I mean. The fact that you get to talk to somebody from a whole different black perspective, that adds to the level of your consciousness on that tour because you get to hear his black experience being from the continent, being educated in England, and then living in Nigeria. I mean, living in Australia. Totally different concept of blackness, total. But all you have to do is just get it together in your own mind and have the desire to figure out how to make it happen.
And how much does a trip like this run a person, cost
Um,
wise?
well, you can go to kemetnu, KEMTNU.com. He has a particular trust that the other folks. I don't know what their prices are because they change year to year, but it's gonna be a couple of grand. To be honest, because the trip provides you with one security, well, two the knowledge from these two knowledgeable the master teachers, and that's I said master teachers who provide you with classes. But they've been taking this particular tour for over 40 years. The food, the security, the knowledge, and the camaraderie, and everything's laid out. All your rooms, all your transportation, because you're going to go from city to city. The accommodations are nice, and as I said, don't need to carry a lot of clothes because it's not a fashion thing. The only time you will be dressed is, like I said, when we're having dinner in the lecture, so you'll be in the hotel, so we'll be air conditioned. But when you're out in that heat, you want a galabia, which is an African outfit. It's that Egyptian cotton. I'm telling you, I waited 3 days. And I said it. I made the mistake of waiting 3 to 4 days. As soon as we got there, the brothers who already been there that night, they went shopping. The next day, they were dressed in Galab Arab gear. Galab. That's soft. You think we have soft Egyptian cotton here? They got the real stuff over there. I mean, the real Zulu. Because it wasn't until I touched one of the brothers' garments, I was like, oh, that's soft. That next night, I went out and got it. Man, I went and I got five. Every place we went, I bought one because the cotton it's Egyptian cotton. It's different. It's a different material. It's of a lighter weight, and it just you wonder how like I said, I was trying to be cool in gear and jeans and short. That Galabia was the what I wear. I wear it here. I think I wore it a couple of times. When it's hot, their garments because they're used to that and they know what type of things they have to do to survive. Their garments are better. It's just for that environment.
So tell the people, you as a black man, what does that feel like to go over to Egypt and see this on the wall? Did you have a moment where you had to tear up because you had seen it?
Mm-hmm.
But so give that experience to the people. Like people talk about going over there and seeing the slave isles in
Mm-hmm.
West Africa, yeah, and they talk about and they brings tears to their eyes and they say it's set up like the prisons,
Mm-hmm.
prison system. But let's get off of that because we're
Right.
talking about Egypt and
All
not
right.
that. But that's an example. Give us because no one ever talks about this. Give us the spiritual, the psychological feeling that you went through when you first went there, and what was the first thing that you saw and you said, "This is real."
Well, luckily enough, when the place that we stayed is right, really, literally across the street from the pyramids. That's one of the beautiful things about this tour. He has arranged it to everybody wants to see the pyramids. So the first night I went to sleep. I had a good rest, a long journey. The plane ride is about 10, and I had to fly from Vegas to New York, and then to Egypt. So it's a very long day, and I mean 24-hour day. Um, but when I went, I had I had a good night meeting some folks, and I went to sleep, and then I woke up super dark. You're in a different time, so I just woke up at some point and I opened the blinds because I don't even know why I closed them and I never closed it again. But I opened the blinds. I don't know how, and I saw the pyramids. Dude, I had to sit down there. I had to sit down. It was like my whole life I've seen different images of it, and for my whole existence, I always wondered about it. Yeah, you have a wonderment about it. So when I got to see it in the fullness of not the full, but the beginning of the day, and they're walking up the steps to it. And these are the same steps that somebody's ancestors, some Nubianated people walked up to erect these different monuments. So just as you're walking there and just getting that feeling and understanding that people made these long time ago, people of color, and then you will learn that they were not really all slaves. There was a hierarchy to the commitment to what they were erecting, which was in this face of their the understanding. I'm going to say the face, the understanding of what their God represented to them, which was their king, their Ra, so to speak, their leaders. And as you travel the entire time, one night I got up on the boat because we stay on the boat part of the time, and we were in the middle of the Nile just floating. And it was like 3:30 in the morning. I looked up, you could see the stars because it's not that much construction. It's not a lot of lights like being in Jamaica in the old days. And it's not like being on a ship. It was just like, like being there in the dark. And you could see all the stars. And I got to see Orion's belt, the three-star alignment. And then I recognized that it's understanding to the pyramids. And for me, when I saw that, and even though it was in a different perspective, I could see the line that they actually made the pyramid line of that you see, the one that we always see. They're in the alignment of the stars. And you see that, and for me, it just was like, wow. I first time, and I've seen Orion belt all over the world, but for the first time, I've seen how that three-star alignment really fits the three pyramids that are there at that particular site, and how that culture really affected everything else. So for me, it was like, I just like I said, I was on a boat. It was kind of it was dark. It was nobody was on the top deck. I was just breathing. You just take that breath, and you just know. I just know I was there. You know what I mean? Not so much. I can't say I was physically there. I just had the understanding of the concept of what they had been explaining. If this is what I'm seeing now, 4,000 years ago, that's what they were seeing, and that connection because it happened there. And I said, it's just that feeling. I just took that breath, and like I say, even now as I think about it, it's just like when I went to the King Museum, I got the opportunity to stand right where that picture is, where they're all pointing, because you've seen that picture your whole life. I know it meant something to my family. I know it meant something to me at the time. But when I got to stand physically where Dr. King's last step were, it just does something. I don't know. Just maybe I'm melanated out. It just does something to you. It does something to me because I've seen that whole representation. I know this was history. This is the last place he stood. So the same thing when I saw the alignment of the stars on the Nile. This is what they saw 4,000 years ago. So,
And that's where we're going to leave it. Imagine being a place that was built 4,000 years ago by melanated people, and then standing there and looking up and seeing what the kings saw, what the queens saw, what the people saw. It's a connection that I can't wait to until I get a chance to experience it myself. So stay tuned. We'll be back.
stay
Black
black. Sorry, stay black.
Black Ice Chronicles Massive.